The chains burned against Zara's blue-scaled wrists as she stood on the metal platform. Her violet eyes, once bright with hope, now stared at the cold floor of the slave market. Around her, voices shouted prices in a dozen alien languages. Look at those markings. Pure Velixian bloodline. Strong back, good for mining. Bidding starts at 500 credits. Zara had been born free on Valix Prime, where crystal trees sang in the wind and twin moons painted the sky silver. That felt like a lifetime ago. Now she was merchandise, displayed under harsh lights for the entertainment of slavers and buyers. The Krillian auctioneer, a gray-skinned creature with too many teeth, grabbed her chin roughly. "Open your mouth, slave. Show them your fangs." Zara obeyed. She had learned that resistance only brought pain. Her small fangs, meant for crushing fruit, gleamed under the lights. Exotic, perfect for wealthy collectors who want something different. In the crowd, buyers examined her like livestock. Most were aliens she recognized. Krillians, Zephyrians, even a few Corgulans with their mechanical implants. But in the back, she spotted something that made her heart skip. A human. She had heard stories about humans, but never seen one. This one was tall, with dark hair and strange pale skin. Unlike the others who leered and pointed, he stood quietly, his brown eyes focused on her face rather than her body. "Do I hear 600? 700? 8. The bidding escalated quickly. Zara closed her eyes, trying to imagine herself back home, swimming in the crystal pools of her childhood. But the chains were too heavy, the voices too loud. 1,000 credits. The crowd fell silent. Zara opened her eyes. The human had spoken, his voice cutting through the noise like a blade. The auctioneer's eyes gleamed with greed. "We have 1,000. Anyone willing to go higher?" A Krillian merchant raised his hand. 1,200. 1,500. The human said calmly. Zara stared at him. Why would a human want to buy her? Humans were supposed to be warriors, fighters who had carved out their own space in the galaxy. What would one want with a broken slave? 1,500 going once, twice, 2,000. The Krillian's voice cracked with frustration. The human stepped forward slightly. His boots made soft sounds on the metal floor. 5,000 credits, the crowd gasped. Even the auctioneer's jaw dropped. 5,000 was more than most slaves sold for in a year. 5,000 credits, the auctioneer stammered. Going once, going twice, sold, to the human. Zara's legs nearly gave out. 5,000 credits. She wasn't worth that much. No slave was worth that much. What did this human plan to do with her? The crowd began to disperse, disappointed they hadn't seen blood or heard screaming. The human approached the platform where Zara still stood, her chains rattling with each breath. Up close, he was even stranger than she had imagined. His skin was pale but not sickly, and his eyes held something she hadn't seen in months. Kindness. "Hello," he said quietly. "My name is Marcus Chen. What's yours?" Zara blinked in confusion. No one had asked her name since her capture. She was just slave or property or it. My name is Zara," she whispered. "Zara," he repeated as if testing how it sounded. "That's a beautiful name." The auctioneer approached, rubbing his hands together. "Excellent choice, human. She's house-trained, very obedient, and I'll take the ownership papers now." Marcus interrupted. "And I want her chains removed." "But sir, regulations require." Marcus pulled out a credit chip and handed it to the auctioneer. "The chains, now." The auctioneer's greed won over his confusion. He quickly unlocked Zara's restraints. The metal fell away from her wrists and ankles, leaving red marks on her blue skin. For the first time in 8 months, Zara was not bound. Marcus noticed, her rubbing her wrists. "We'll get something for those marks," he said gently. "Are you hurt anywhere else?" Zara stared at him. This had to be a trick. Maybe he was kinder than most. but she was still his property now. He owned her completely. I'm fine, master, she said automatically. Something flickered across Marcus's face. You don't need to call me that. Marcus is fine. But you bought me. You own me. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he did something that shocked Zara to her core. He smiled. Not the cruel smile of someone who enjoyed power over another. Not the hungry smile of someone planning to use her. It was warm, genuine, and completely foreign to her recent experience. We'll talk about that later, he said. First, let's get you something to eat and a place to rest. You look exhausted. Zara followed him through the crowded slave market in a daze. Other slaves looked at her with envy. She had been purchased by someone who seemed gentle, but Zara knew better than to hope. Masters could be kind one moment and cruel the next. She had learned that lesson the hard way. As they walked toward the exit, Marcus stopped at a food vendor. What do Velixians eat? He asked. The question caught Zara off guard. We eat many things. Fruits, grains, some proteins. Marcus nodded and bought several items from the vendor. Fresh fruits, bread, and what looked like synthetic meat. He handed the bag to Zara. Here. You must be hungry. Zara clutched the bag, unsure if this was another test. Thank you, Marcus. She had never called a master by their first name before. It felt strange on her tongue, dangerous even. But Marcus simply nodded and continued walking. They reached his ship, a mid-sized cargo vessel that had seen better days but looked well-maintained. The name, Second Chance, was painted on the hull in faded letters. Home sweet home, Marcus said, activating the airlock. It's not much, but it's clean and safe. Safe. When was the last time Zara had felt safe? The interior of the ship was sparse but functional. Marcus led her to a small cabin near the back. This will be your room, he said, opening the door. Zara peered inside. There was a real bed with clean sheets, a small desk, and even a window, showing the stars outside. It was more luxurious than anywhere she had slept since her capture. My room? She asked. Of course. Everyone needs privacy. Marcus pointed down the hall. There's a bathroom with a shower if you want to clean up. I'll be in the cockpit preparing for departure. Take your time. He started to leave, then paused. Zara, you're safe here. I know that might be hard to believe right now, but it's true. Then he was gone, leaving Zara alone in her room with a bag of food and more questions than she had ever had in her life. She sat on the bed, testing its softness. The mattress gave way under her weight. A real mattress, not the metal slabs she had grown used to. Outside her window, the space station continued its eternal rotation. Ships came and went, carrying cargo, passengers, and slaves to destinations across the galaxy. But for the first time in months, Zara wasn't afraid of where she was going. She was afraid of something else entirely. She was afraid to hope. Chapter 2. Unexpected Kindness. 3 days into their journey, Zara still couldn't understand Marcus Chen. She had waited for the cruelty to begin, for the demands, the punishments, the reminder that she was property. Instead, Marcus had given her space, food, and something she had forgotten existed: choice. Good morning, Zara, Marcus said as she entered the ship's small common area. Sleep well? Yes, thank you. She paused, then added cautiously, What are my duties today? Marcus looked up from his coffee, a bitter human drink that he seemed to need each morning. Duties? My work, my purpose. The expression that crossed Marcus's face was one of sadness mixed with something else. Anger, perhaps, but not directed at her. You don't have duties, Zara. You're not a servant. But I'm your slave. Marcus set down his coffee cup with deliberate care. Actually, no. You're not. Zara blinked. I don't understand. Marcus reached into his jacket and pulled out a datapad. With a few taps, he brought up legal documents, the ownership papers from the slave market. These papers, he said, They make you a free citizen of the Terran Coalition. See this stamp? It means you're under the protection of human law. Zara stared at the screen. The words were in standard Galactic, but they might as well have been written in ancient Krillian for all the sense they made. To her, That's not possible, you bought me. I bought your freedom, Marcus corrected gently. The Coalition has laws against slavery, but they only apply to our own space. In neutral territory like that station, I had to play by their rules to get you out. The datapad slipped from Zara's numb fingers. Marcus caught it before it hit the floor. You freed me? She whispered. Yes. Why? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight that Zara hadn't noticed before. Because no one should be property. Because everyone deserves the chance to choose their own path, he paused. And because I know what it's like to lose everything and have no one care. Zara felt tears welling up in her violet eyes. She had trained herself not to cry. Tears were weakness, and weakness brought punishment. But now, facing this impossible kindness, she couldn't stop them. I don't understand humans, she said through her tears. Marcus handed her a tissue. Most humans don't understand humans either. We're a complicated species. Where are we going? A human colony called New Perth. It's in Coalition space, so you'll be completely free there. I have contacts who can help you find work, a place to live, whatever you need to start over. Start over. The words hung in the air like a promise. Zara was afraid to believe. What if I don't want to start over? Marcus raised an eyebrow. What do you mean? Zara wiped her eyes with the tissue. What if I want to stay with you, Zara? Not as a slave, she said quickly. As crew. You saved my life. Let me work for you, earn my keep. I'm good with machines, and I learn fast. Marcus studied her face. You don't owe me anything. Maybe not, but I want to help. She straightened, finding strength in her conviction. You showed me kindness when no one else would. That means something. Marcus smiled, that same warm smile that had confused her at the slave market. Crew positions are paid positions, standard rates plus a share of any profits from cargo runs. You'd pay me? Of course, you'd be working, not volunteering. Zara felt something she hadn't experienced in so long she had forgotten its name. Purpose, not the hollow purpose of serving a master, but the genuine satisfaction of choosing to contribute to something meaningful. Then I accept. Marcus stood and extended his hand. Welcome aboard the Second Chance, Zara. She stared at his outstretched hand. In Velixian culture, touching palms was a gesture of equals, something she had not been allowed to do since her capture. Hesitantly, she reached out and clasped his hand. Thank you, she said. For everything. Thank you for staying. This ship gets lonely with just me rattling around in it. As they shook hands, Zara realized that Marcus had given her something more valuable than freedom. He had given her back her dignity. Later that day, Marcus showed her the ship's systems. The Second Chance was a cargo hauler, but it was clear that Marcus had modified it extensively. The engine room was twice the size it should have been, and there were weapon systems that definitely weren't standard. What kind of cargo do you usually carry? Zara asked, running her scaled fingers over a control panel. The legal kind, Marcus said with a slight smile. Mostly. Mostly, Marcus sighed. Sometimes I take jobs that the authorities might not approve of. Nothing harmful. Medical supplies to blockaded worlds, information to places where it's censored, that kind of thing. That's dangerous. Yes, it is. Zara thought about this. Is that how you could afford to pay 5,000 credits for me? Partially. I've been saving for something important. Marcus looked at her. Turns out it was you. The simple honesty of the statement made Zara's chest tight. You couldn't have known. No. But I'm glad it worked out this way. They worked together for hours, Marcus explaining the ship's systems while Zara absorbed everything with the quick mind that had kept her alive through 8 months of horror. She was particularly interested in the communications array. "This is sophisticated equipment," she observed. "I stay in touch with a network of people who do similar work. Information is the most valuable cargo in the galaxy." "What kind of information?" Marcus hesitated. "The kind that powerful people don't want shared. Locations of slave markets, routes used by traffickers, corruption in local governments." Understanding dawned on Zara. "You're not just a cargo hauler." "No, I'm not." "What are you then?" Marcus met her eyes. "Someone who believes that freedom is worth fighting for." That night, Zara lay in her bed, staring out at the stars. In 3 days, Marcus Chen had turned her world upside down. He had shown her that not all captors were cruel, that some people fought for others without asking for anything in return. But there was something else, something she was only beginning to understand. For the first time since her capture, she felt like herself again. Not property, not a commodity, but Zara of Valix Prime, a person with thoughts, feelings, and choices. It was terrifying and wonderful at the same time. A soft knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she called. Marcus entered carrying a steaming mug. "Thought you might like some tea. It's a blend from Valix Prime. I picked it up at the station." Zara sat up, accepting the mug with both hands. The scent hit her immediately. Crystal fruit and mountain herbs, exactly like the tea her mother used to make. "How did you know?" she whispered. "I did some research on Valixian culture after I decided to bid on you. I thought you might be homesick." The tea tasted like childhood, like safety, like everything she had lost. Tears ran down her cheeks as she sipped it. "I'm sorry," Marcus said, concerned. "I didn't mean to upset you." "You didn't upset me," Zara said through her tears. "You reminded me who I used to be." Marcus sat in the small chair by her desk. "Who were you? Before?" "I was a communications engineer on Valix Prime. I worked on the orbital stations, maintaining the quantum relay networks." She smiled through her tears. "I was good at it." "I'm sure you were, and you will be again." "You really believe that?" "I know it," Marcus said firmly. "The people who took you, who sold you, they can break your body, but they can't break your spirit. Not unless you let them." Zara finished her tea, feeling warmth spread through her chest. "Marcus, why do you do this? Help people, I mean." Marcus was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke. "My sister was taken by slavers when I was 18. I spent 2 years searching for her, following every lead, paying every bribe." "Did you find her?" "Yes, but not in time." His voice was soft, heavy with old grief. "She died in a facility not unlike the one where I found you. I was 3 days too late." Zara set down her mug and reached out, placing her hand on his arm. "I'm sorry." Her name was Lisa. She was brilliant, funny, kind to everyone she met. She deserved better than what happened to her. So you save others instead. "I try to. Sometimes I succeed, sometimes I don't. But I have to try." Zara understood now. Marcus carried his own chains, invisible ones forged from guilt and loss. By helping others, he was trying to free himself. "She would be proud of you," Zara said quietly. Marcus looked at her, surprised. "You think so?" "I know so. You saved me, Marcus. Not just from slavery, but from forgetting who I am. That's the greatest gift anyone has ever given me." Marcus smiled, but it was tinged with sadness. "You saved yourself, Zara. You just needed someone to unlock the door." After Marcus left, Zara lay back down and stared at the stars. She thought about her home, her family, her old life. They felt impossibly distant, like dreams from another person's memory. But for the first time, since her capture, she wasn't mourning that loss. She was planning her future, and Marcus Chen would be part of it. Chapter 3. The Choice. 2 weeks after leaving the slave market, Zara stood in the engine room of the Second Chance, her hands covered in lubricant and her mind focused on the hyperdrive calibrations. The work felt good, purposeful in a way that had nothing to do with serving others and everything to do with using her skills. "How's she looking?" Marcus asked, entering the engine room with 2 cups of coffee. "The primary motivator is running hot," Zara reported, accepting the coffee gratefully. "Nothing dangerous, but it's not efficient. I think I can recalibrate the plasma flow to reduce the heat output by 12%. Marcus whistled appreciatively. "That would save us a lot of fuel costs." "It's what I do." Zara smiled, then caught herself. The expression felt strange on her face. She had smiled more in the past 2 weeks than in the 8 months before combined. "You're good at this," Marcus said. "Really good. I'm lucky to have you as crew." The word crew still sent a warm feeling through Zara's chest. She was crew, not cargo, an equal, not property. "Marcus," she said, setting down her coffee. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. The network you mentioned, the people who fight against slavery, are they organized?" Marcus studied her face carefully. "What do you mean?" "I mean, is there a group, a structure, or just individuals doing what they can?" "Both," Marcus said slowly. "There are individuals like me, but there's also something bigger." "Why do you ask?" Zara turned back to the engine, her hands moving automatically as she spoke. "I've been thinking about what you said, about information being the most valuable cargo." "Yes? I know things, about the slavers who took me, about their operations, routes, contacts, weaknesses." Her voice hardened. "They took everything from me, my freedom, my dignity, my hope. But they made a mistake." "What mistake?" "They kept me alive." Zara's eyes met his. "And I remember everything." Marcus sat down, his coffee cup. "Zara, what are you saying?" "I'm saying I want to help. Not just with engine repairs and cargo runs. I want to help with the real work. It's dangerous. More dangerous than being a slave." Marcus couldn't argue with that logic. "The network is called the Underground Railroad, a reference to something from Earth's history. We help slaves escape, but we also gather intelligence and sometimes strike directly at trafficking operations. Sometimes, when we can do it without risking innocent lives." Marcus paused. "There's something else, a mission coming up. It's, personal." Zara waited for him to continue. "Remember the Krillian who was bidding against me at the auction? The one who went up to 2,000 credits? Yes. His name is Vex Thrawn. He's one of the biggest slave traders in this sector. He runs a facility on Kepler Station where they break people." Zara's blood chilled. "Break them how?" "Psychological. Conditioning. Pain compliance. They turn independent beings into perfect slaves. Obedient, grateful, broken." Marcus's jaw tightened. "It's where my sister died. And you're going after him." "I've been tracking his operation for 3 years. I finally have enough information to shut him down permanently." Zara was quiet for a moment, processing this. "You're going to need inside information. Someone who understands how these places work." "Zara, I can help," she said firmly. "I know how they think, how they operate. I know what to look for. It's too dangerous if something went wrong." "Then I'd be back where I started," Zara interrupted. "But if we succeed, hundreds of people go free." Marcus walked to the viewport, staring out at the stars. "I can't ask you to do this." "You're not asking, I'm volunteering." "Why?" Zara joined him at the viewport. "Because you showed me that one person can make a difference. Because I want to be that person for someone else." She paused. "And because I'm tired of running from my nightmares. I want to face them." Marcus turned to look at her. "You're sure?" "I'm sure." Marcus nodded slowly. "Then we'll need to contact the others. This is too big for just the 2 of us." "Others?" The railroad has cells throughout this sector. If we're going to hit Thrawn's operation, we'll need coordination, resources, and backup. How many people are we talking about? For this? Maybe 20 ships, 60 people. Zara's eyes widened. That many? Thrawn's facility is heavily guarded. It's not just a slave market. It's a fortress. We get one shot at this, and if we fail, a lot of good people die. And if we succeed? Marcus smiled grimly. If we succeed, we put one of the galaxy's worst monsters out of business permanently. That night, Marcus sent coded messages across the galaxy. Within hours, responses began arriving. Ship captains, former slaves, government officials who worked in the shadows, all part of a vast network dedicated to fighting the slave trade. Zara watched the communications array light up with incoming messages, each one representing someone, willing to risk everything for the freedom of strangers. They're all volunteers? She asked. Everyone. No one gets paid for railroad work. People do it because it's right. And they'll all come? For this operation? They'll come. Marcus's voice carried absolute certainty. Vex Thrawn has made enemies across the galaxy. This is their chance for payback. Over the next several days, the Second Chance became a hub of activity. Ships arrived at their rendezvous point, a dead system on the edge of civilized space. Each brought volunteers, supplies, and information. Zara met humans, Arcturians, Zephyrians, even a few Cordalans whose mechanical implants had been forced on them by slave masters. All had been touched by slavery in some way. All were determined to strike back. The operations leader was a tall human woman named Captain Sarah Martinez, whose scarred face told the story of her own escape from bondage. You're sure about this? Intelligence? Martinez asked, reviewing the data Zara had provided. I'm sure, Zara replied. Thrawn's security is built around preventing escapes, not defending against attacks. He's arrogant. He thinks no one would dare challenge him directly. And you're certain about the facility's layout? The basic structure is standard for conditioning. Facilities, cells on the lower levels, processing areas in the middle, administration and living quarters on top. Martinez nodded grimly. 24 hours. That's our window. Station security will respond to any disturbance within 30 minutes, but they won't call for military backup unless the situation looks really bad. How do we make sure it doesn't look that bad? Asked Jake Morrison, a former slave whose arms bore the scars of neural implants. We hit fast, extract the slaves, and disappear before anyone realizes it's an organized attack rather than a slave riot, Martinez explained. Zara felt her heart racing. This was really happening. They were going to attack Vex Thrawn's facility. What about Thrawn himself? She asked. Martinez smiled coldly. He's mine. The briefing continued for hours, covering every aspect of the operation. Zara absorbed it all, her engineer's mind cataloging details and contingencies. Finally, Martinez dismissed the group. As the volunteers dispersed to their ships, Marcus approached Zara. Last chance to change your mind, he said. I'm not changing my mind. Good. Marcus handed her a small device. Emergency beacon. If things go wrong, activate it and someone will come for you. Zara clipped the beacon to her belt. What about you? I'll be fine, I've done this before. Not against someone like Thrawn. Marcus was quiet for a moment. No. Not like this. They stood together at the viewport, watching the volunteer ships prepare for the mission. Each vessel represented lives that would be risked, families that might be broken. Are we doing the right thing? Zara asked. I don't know, Marcus admitted. But we're doing the necessary thing. Is there a difference? Sometimes. Sometimes the right thing is easy. Helping someone who's hurt. Feeding someone who's hungry. But sometimes the right thing requires terrible choices. Zara thought about her months in captivity, about the other slaves she had seen broken by Thrawn's methods. The people in that facility, she said. They're counting on us, even if they don't know it. Yes. Then let's go save them, Marcus smiled. Not his usual warm smile, but something harder, more determined. Let's go save them. As the fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace, Zara felt a strange mix of fear and anticipation. She was about to face the very people who had destroyed her life, but this time she wouldn't be alone. This time she would fight back. Chapter 4. The Rescue. Kepler Station hung in space like a diseased tumor, its hull patched with different metals and scarred by years of hasty repairs. To most travelers, it looked like any other frontier trading post. Zara knew better. She had seen the hidden levels, the soundproof chambers, the reinforced doors that locked from the outside. This place was a factory for human misery. Remember, Captain Martinez's voice crackled through the comm system. We go in fast and quiet. The slaves are our priority. Everything else is secondary. The underground railroad fleet had dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system, their ships hidden in the shadow of a dead planet. 23 vessels, each carrying volunteers who had once been where the slaves they were about to rescue were now. Second chance. You're with me. On the primary assault, Martinez continued. Chen, I need you and Zara on the detention levels. You know the layout better than anyone. Understood, Marcus replied, his hand steady on the ship's controls. Zara checked her equipment one final time. She wore light body armor borrowed from the railroad supplies and carried a non-lethal stunner. The plan was to avoid killing. If possible, they were liberators, not executioners, but Zara knew that noble intentions meant little if you were dead. Contact in 30 seconds, Marcus announced. Through the view screen, Zara could see Kepler Station growing larger. Docking bays, communications arrays, and weapon turrets dotted its surface. It looked formidable, but Zara knew its weakness. Vex Thrawn was arrogant. He relied on fear and isolation to control his victims, never imagining that anyone would dare attack his stronghold directly. Today he would learn how wrong he was. All ships begin your runs, Martinez ordered. The fleet split into 3 groups. The first, led by Martinez, would assault the main docking bay and draw station security. The second would hit the communications center to prevent calls for help. The third would extract slaves from the detention levels. Marcus belonged to the third group. The second chance, along with 4 other ships, approached the station's lower levels where the slave quarters were located. Unlike the main docking bays, these areas had minimal security. Thrawn never worried about his merchandise escaping. Docking in 3, 2, 1. Contact. The ship shuddered as its airlocks sealed against the station's hull. Marcus had cut through the outer plating with surgical precision, creating an entry point that bypassed the main security systems. Go, go, go! Zara followed Marcus through the breach into the station's corridors. The air was stale and recycled, thick with the smell of fear and desperation. Emergency lighting cast everything in hellish red shadows. They moved quickly through the familiar maze of passages. Zara's memory of the station's layout proved accurate. Every turn, every door was exactly where she remembered. The first group of cells was just ahead. Marcus, she whispered, pointing to a security camera. There. Marcus raised his stunner and fired. The camera sparked and went dark. They reached the cell block and Zara's heart broke. Dozens of beings from a dozen species sat in cramped cages, their eyes hollow with despair. Some were fresh captures, still fighting. Others had been here longer, their spirits worn down by Thrawn's methods. We're here to help, Marcus announced, his voice carrying through the detention area. We're getting you out. Some of the prisoners looked up with hope. Others cowered, afraid this was another test, another cruelty. Zara began working on the cell locks, her engineer's training making quick work of the simple mechanisms. It's okay, she told a young Arcturian girl in the first cell. We're friends, we're taking you home. Zara? Zara, is that you? Zara spun around. In the last cell, pressed against the bars, was a face she recognized. Keth? She whispered. Keth had been captured the same day as Zara, taken from the same transport. They had been processed together, suffered together, hoped together. Zara had thought he was dead. I knew you'd come back, Keth said, tears streaming down his scaled face. I knew you wouldn't leave us. I promised, didn't I? Zara's hand shook as she opened his cell. I promised we'd all get home. Marcus watched the reunion with something like amazement. This wasn't just a rescue mission for Zara. It was personal. She had known these people, lived with them, shared. Their nightmare. We need to move, he said gently. More security will be coming. The freed slaves followed them through the corridors, a growing procession of hope and determination. Some were too weak to walk and had to be carried. Others, like Keth, found strength in their freedom. They reached the extraction point where their ships waited. Other rescue teams were arriving with more freed slaves, dozens of beings who had thought they would never see their homeworlds again. Loading complete, reported Jake Morrison over the comm. All ships, prepare for departure. But as they prepared to leave, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed and automated voices announced security alerts. They know we're here, Marcus said. Through the station's viewports, Zara could see security forces mobilizing. Armed guards ran through corridors and weapon turrets swiveled toward the docked rescue ships. This is Martinez. The captain's voice crackled over the comm. We've got Thrawn, but station security is converging on our position. All teams bug out now. What about the other levels? Zara asked. There are more slaves up there. Marcus was already sealing the airlock. We can't save them if we're dead. We'll have to come back. The second chance disengaged from the station just as security forces reached their level. Blaster fire lit up the corridor behind them, but they were already away. As the rescue fleet regrouped and prepared to jump to hyperspace, Zara watched Kepler Station recede in the distance. They had saved nearly 200 slaves, struck a major blow against Thrawn's operation, and captured the man himself. But she couldn't stop thinking about the ones they had left behind. You did good work today, Marcus said, joining her at the viewport. Not good enough. Zara, you saved 200 people today. That's not nothing. But there are still more. And now Thrawn's people know we can strike back. They'll move the remaining slaves, make it harder to find them. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Yes, they probably will. So what do? We keep fighting. We save who we can when we can, and we never give up. In the ship's passenger compartment, the freed slaves were beginning to process their rescue. Some wept with joy. Others sat in stunned silence, unable to believe they were free. Keth approached Zara, his step still unsteady from months of captivity. I need to tell you something, he said quietly. About the others we left behind. Zara's attention sharpened. What about them? There's a new group that arrived yesterday. 20 Velixians from the outer colonies. They're planning to process them tomorrow. Zara's blood ran cold. Processing meant breaking, the systematic destruction of will and personality that turned people into perfect slaves. We have to go back, she said. Zara, Marcus began. We have to go back, she insisted. Those are my people, Marcus. They'll be destroyed if we don't act. Marcus looked at the exhausted volunteers around them. They had just completed a dangerous mission and barely escaped with their lives. Asking them to go back immediately would be almost impossible. But as he looked at Zara's face, he saw something that decided it for him. He saw Lisa. His sister had looked like that in the last message she had sent, desperate, determined, clinging to hope even as darkness closed around her. Captain Martinez, he said into his comm. We need to talk. 20 minutes later, Marcus stood before the assembled rescue fleet commanders. Most looked exhausted, their ships damaged from the fighting at Kepler Station. You want us to go back? Captain Rodriguez of the Defiant Star asked incredulously. We barely made it out the first time. The intelligence is solid, Marcus replied. 20 Velixians scheduled for processing in 18 hours. If we don't act, they'll be lost forever. And station security will be expecting us, pointed out Captain Kim. They'll have reinforcements, better preparations. Which is why we go in different, Zara said, stepping forward. Not as a fleet, not as an assault. The commanders turned to her. What do you mean? Martinez asked. I go in alone. As bait. The room erupted in protests, but Zara held up her hand. Listen to me. Thrawn is captured, but his organization is still intact. They need to know what happened to their operation, and they need someone to blame. She paused. They'll want me back. The slave who escaped and brought down their boss. That's suicide, Morrison said flatly. No, it's strategy. I go in pretending to surrender, claiming I want to make a deal. While they're focused on me, a small team extracts the Velixians. Martinez studied her carefully. What kind of deal? Information about the Underground Railroad. Names, locations, plans. Zara's voice was steady. They'll believe it because it's what they'd expect. A broken slave trying to buy her way back into their good graces. And when they realize you're lying? Then I die. But the Velixians live. The room fell silent. Marcus felt his chest tighten. He had just found Zara, saved her from slavery. The thought of losing her now was unbearable. There has to be another way, he said. There isn't time for another way, Zara replied. Those people will be processed tomorrow. Once that happens, they're gone. Not dead, but gone in every way that matters. Martinez nodded slowly. It could work. A small team, minimal signature in and out while their attention is on you. Captain, Marcus protested. She's right, Chen. It's the only way to save them without sacrificing dozens of our people. The vote was close, but it passed. Zara would return to Kepler Station as bait while a small extraction team rescued the Velixians. As the meeting dispersed, Marcus pulled Zara aside. I can't let you do this, he said. You can't stop me, she replied gently. This is my choice, Marcus, my decision. I won't lose you too. Zara placed her hand on his arm. You won't lose me. I'm not planning to die today. Plans don't always work out. No, they don't, but Marcus, these people, they're like I was 2 weeks ago. Hopeless, broken, convinced that no one cares enough to save them. Her violet eyes blazed with determination. I want to be there, Marcus Chen. Marcus stared at her, seeing the strength that had always been there beneath the surface. Slavery hadn't broken her spirit. It had refined it into something unbreakable. Okay, he said finally, but I'm going with the extraction team. Marcus. My ship, my choice, he said, echoing her words. You're not the only one who gets to be heroic today. 3 hours later, Zara sat in a stolen shuttle approaching Kepler Station alone. Her hands were bound, not too tightly, but enough to sell the illusion of capture. Her story was simple. She had been recaptured by bounty hunters and was being returned for the reward. Unknown shuttle, identify yourself, came the station's hail. This is Captain Voss, she replied, using an identity the Underground Railroad had prepared. I've got some merchandise that belongs to you. There was a pause, then, what kind of merchandise? The Velixian that caused all your trouble. The one who helped bring down Thrawn. Another pause, longer this time. Zara could imagine the frantic communications happening within the station as Thrawn's lieutenants decided how to handle this unexpected gift. Docking Bay 7. Come in slow and keep your hands visible. Acknowledged. As her shuttle approached the station, Zara caught sight of Marcus's ship holding position behind a nearby asteroid. The extraction team was in place. The docking bay was heavily guarded. At least 20 armed personnel waiting for her arrival. They were taking no chances with the slave who had humiliated their organization. Zara walked down the shuttle's ramp, with her hands raised, projecting an image of defeat and desperation. It wasn't hard. She remembered exactly how it felt to be powerless. Well, well, said a familiar voice. The little fish returns to the net. Zara looked up to see Dex Morlan, Thrawn's chief enforcer. He was a massive Krillian with cybernetic implants that made him look more machine than organic. She remembered his electric prod, his casual cruelty. Hello, Dex, she said quietly. You cost us a lot of money, slave. Thrawn's capture, the facility damage, the merchandise we lost. He smiled, showing too many teeth. But you're going to help us get it all back. That's why I'm here. Moreland's eyes narrowed. You think I'm stupid? You expect me to believe you came back voluntarily? I expect you to believe I got tired of running, Zara replied. Do you know what it's like out there for an escaped slave? No money, no papers, no friends. I lasted 2 weeks before the bounty hunters found me. It was a believable story. Most escaped slaves were recaptured within days. And now you want to make a deal, Moreland said. I want to survive. I'll tell you everything about the people who freed me, their names, their ships, their plans. In exchange, you let me live. Moreland laughed, a sound like grinding metal. Oh, you'll tell us everything anyway, but not here. We're going to take you somewhere more private. He gestured, and 2 guards grabbed Zara's arms. As they dragged her deeper into the station, she caught sight of a chronometer on the wall. 17 minutes until the extraction team moved. She just had to stay alive that long. They brought her to an interrogation chamber deep in the station's bowels. The room was designed to break spirits, soundproof walls, restraint devices, and instruments whose purpose was all too clear. Strap her in, Moreland ordered. As the guards secured her to the interrogation chair, Zara forced herself to remain calm. Fear would only make this harder. Now then, Moreland said, powering up a neural probe. Let's start with an easy question. How many ships were in the attack force? 23, Zara replied truthfully. There was no point in lying about something they could verify. Good. And their leader? Captain Sarah Martinez of the Liberator. Moreland made notes on his datapad. Excellent. You see how easy this is when you cooperate? Zara nodded, playing her part. Meanwhile, she watched the chronometer. On the wall, 14 minutes. Now, Moreland continued, tell me about the man who bought you. Marcus Chen. Zara's heart clenched, but she kept her expression neutral. What do you want to know? Everything. His ship, his crew, his plans. He runs cargo between the outer colonies. Small-time smuggling, mostly medical supplies and information. And he just happened to have 5,000 credits to spend on a slave. He said he'd been saving for something important. Moreland's probe hummed as it analyzed her responses. Truth, he announced. But incomplete. What aren't you telling me? 11 minutes, he works with others, a network. What kind of network? People who help slaves escape. They call themselves the Underground Railroad. Moreland's eyes lit up with greed. This was exactly the kind of information his organization could sell to slave traders throughout the sector. How many people in this network? Zara hesitated, as if reluctant to betray her rescuers. I don't know exactly. Hundreds, maybe thousands. And their base of operations? They don't have one. They move around, use different ships, different identities. 8 minutes. The interrogation continued, Moreland extracting piece by piece a picture of a vast conspiracy against the slave trade. Most of what Zara told him was true. The Underground Railroad did exist, and it was exactly as dangerous to people, like him as she described. But she carefully avoided mentioning anything that could help him capture specific individuals. This Chen, Moreland said. You cared about him. Zara's composure slipped slightly. He was kind to me. Kind, Moreland laughed. And where is your kind master now? Did he come to rescue you again? No. He said I was on my own. Of course, he did. Humans use people and throw them away. It's what they do. 5 minutes. Moreland leaned closer, his mechanical eye whirring as it focused on her face. But I think you're lying about something. The neural probe shows deception, but I can't pinpoint what. Zara's pulse quickened. If he discovered the truth. Maybe, Moreland continued. You're not quite as broken as you pretend. Maybe you still have some fight left in you. He activated a pain stimulator. Electricity coursed through Zara's body and she screamed despite herself. There it is, Moreland said with satisfaction. The real you. Still hoping, still fighting, we'll fix that. 3 minutes, please, Zara gasped. I told you everything. Not everything. Not yet. Moreland increased the stimulator's power. But you will. By the time I'm done with you, you'll beg to tell me everything you know. The pain was incredible, worse than anything she had experienced during her captivity. But Zara focused on the chronometer, counting down the seconds. 2 minutes. You know what I think? Moreland said conversationally, as if he weren't torturing her. I think your friend Chen is planning something. I think this whole surrender story is a lie. 1 minute. I think, Moreland continued, that you're exactly where you want to be. The lights went out. Emergency lighting kicked in a second later, bathing everything in red. Alarms began blaring throughout the station. What's happening? Moreland shouted. Into his comm. Security breach in detention block C, came the panicked reply. Multiple hostiles, unknown numbers. Moreland spun to face Zara, his mechanical eye glowing in the dim light. You little... The interrogation room door exploded inward. Marcus stood in the doorway, weapon drawn, his face set in grim determination. Get away from her, he said quietly. Moreland reached for his sidearm, but Marcus was faster. The stunner bolt caught the Krillian in the chest, dropping him to the floor. Are you all right? Marcus asked, quickly releasing Zara's restraints. I am now, she said, rubbing feeling back into her wrists. The Velixians, safe. Jake's team got them out 5 minutes ago. Marcus helped her to her feet. Can you walk? I can run if I have to. They made their way through the station's corridors as emergency teams rushed toward the detention levels. The extraction had gone perfectly. By the time station security realized what was happening, the rescue teams were already away. This way, Marcus said, leading her toward their escape route. But as they rounded a corner, they found their path blocked by a squad of security guards. Halt! The squad leader shouted. Marcus raised his weapon, but there were too many of them. They were trapped. Then the lights went out again. In the darkness, Zara heard the distinctive whine of stunner fire, the thuds of bodies hitting the floor. When the emergency lighting returned, the security squad was down. This way, said a familiar voice. Captain Martinez stepped out of the shadows, her weapon smoking. I thought you might need backup. How did you... Marcus began. I never left. Martinez said simply. Call it Commander's intuition. They reached their escape shuttle without further incident. As they lifted off from Kepler Station, Zara looked back at the facility that had been her prison. Any regrets? Marcus asked. Only one, Zara replied. That we can't go back and get the rest. We will, Martinez said from the pilot's seat. Someday. Places like this don't last forever. As they jumped to hyperspace, Zara felt a deep satisfaction. 20 more people were free because of what they had done today. 20 more beings who would see their home worlds again. But more than that, she had proven something to herself. She was no longer a victim. She was a fighter. Epilogue. New. Beginnings 6 months later, Zara stood on the observation deck of New Perth Station, watching ships come and go in the busy traffic lanes. The colony had grown significantly since she had first arrived. New businesses, new families, new hope. She wore the uniform of the Colonial Engineering Corps, her rank insignia marking her as a senior systems specialist. The work was challenging and rewarding, maintaining the communications networks that connected New Perth to the rest of human space. But it wasn't her only job. The Meridian is requesting permission to dock, came the announcement over the station's comm system. Zara smiled. She recognized that ship. 20 minutes later, Marcus Chen walked into the engineering section, carrying a familiar duffel bag and wearing his trademark smile. Miss me? He asked. Maybe a little, Zara replied, embracing him warmly. How did the Arcturus run go? 43 rescued, including an entire family group. The parents had been separated from their children for 2 years. Any problems? Nothing we couldn't handle. Jake sends his regards, by the way. He's thinking of settling down on Kepler's world. Apparently he met someone. Zara laughed. Good for him. Everyone deserves a chance at happiness. They walked together toward the station's residential section, past shops and restaurants filled with beings from a dozen worlds. New Perth had become a haven for freed slaves and refugees, a place where anyone could start over. "Martinez has a new mission," Marcus said as they reached Zara's apartment. "Big one. She wants to know if you're interested." "What kind of mission?" "The kind that saves lives." Zara looked out her window at the stars beyond New Perth's atmospheric dome. Somewhere out there, people were suffering in darkness, convinced that no one cared enough to help them. She knew better now. "When do we leave?" she asked. Marcus grinned. "I was hoping you'd say that. Ship departs in 3 hours." 3 hours? "Marcus, I need to pack, arrange coverage for my shifts. Already done. Your supervisor thinks you're taking a well-deserved vacation." Zara shook her head, but she was smiling. "You're impossible. So are you. That's why we work so well together." As they prepared for another mission, Zara reflected on the journey that had brought her here. From slave to free being to active fighter for justice, it seemed impossible that so much could change in such a short time. But then she remembered something Marcus had told her during her first days of freedom. "You saved yourself, Zara. You just needed someone to unlock the door." Now she was unlocking doors for others, giving them the same chance Marcus had given her, the chance to be free, the chance to choose their own path, the chance to discover that kindness, real kindness, still existed in the galaxy. 2 hours later, the second chance undocked from New Perth Station and jumped to hyperspace, carrying 2 people who had found their purpose in fighting for those who couldn't fight for themselves. Behind them, New Perth continued to grow and prosper, a beacon of hope in a sometimes dark galaxy. And somewhere in the vast emptiness between stars, another slave looked up at the night sky and dared to hope that freedom might be possible. They were right to hope, because Zara and Marcus were coming and they never left anyone behind. The end.